The judge leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded with a smug expression. Before him stood a 17-year-old black teenager in an orange jumpsuit, hands shackled, barely lifting his head. Then it happened. A smirk. Subtle. Quick. But unmistakable. The kind of smirk that says, "I already know who you are, and I don't need to hear a word." But that judge had no idea what was coming, because behind that boy, in the gallery, sat someone who wasn't smirking. Someone who'd move heaven and earth to dismantle every assumption in that courtroom. His mother. And all it took was one phone call. Let's rewind. Let me show you how it all began. Marcus Carter was not a kid who stood out. He didn't get in fights. He didn't skip school. He played varsity basketball, worked part-time at a bookstore, and kept his grades just good enough to stay on the team. He was the kind of teen teachers liked but didn't worry about. His mother, Denise Carter, had raised him on her own since he was 6. She was strict, sure, but fiercely protective. Her rule was simple. You stay clean, and I'll fight for you till my last breath. It was a Thursday afternoon in Atlanta. Hot. Sticky. School had just let out. Marcus walked with his headphones on, his backpack slung low, cutting through a quiet neighborhood shortcut on his way to work. He never saw the cop car roll up behind him. 2 officers got out fast. No lights, no siren. One called out. Marcus paused, pulled out one earbud. The officer asked to see his bag. Confused, Marcus asked, "Why?" That's when the other officer grabbed his arm. Hard. Within seconds, he was face down on the sidewalk, hands behind his back, a knee pressing into his spine. They said a suspect matching his description had just stolen a laptop from a local electronics store. Tall, black, grey hoodie. Marcus had a grey hoodie. That was all it took. The nearby store owner caught it all on his phone, from the moment they grabbed Marcus to when they shoved him into the back of the cruiser. His protests? Ignored. The witnesses trying to intervene, threatened with obstruction. Marcus sat in a holding cell for over 5 hours before he was finally fingerprinted. No one told him what was happening. No lawyer, no call. He kept saying, "I didn't steal anything." But no one cared. By morning, the police report was filed. It said the store clerk had seen a tall black male in a hoodie with a large backpack fleeing the scene. No mention of the surveillance footage from the store. No acknowledgement that Marcus had been 3 blocks away at the time. He was charged with grand larceny. His arraignment was set for the next day. When Denise arrived at the courthouse and saw her son in cuffs, something shifted in her. She didn't cry, she didn't yell, but her eyes, they were ice cold. She sat in the back of the courtroom, unmoving, lips tight, watching as the judge skimmed Marcus's file. Then that smirk. It was brief, maybe a second. But Denise saw it. It wasn't just about Marcus. It was about who the system thought he was. The judge called Marcus up. The prosecutor, barely out of law school, rattled off the charges. "Your Honor, the defendant matches the suspect's description, was found in proximity to the crime scene, and resisted arrest. We request he be held without bail pending trial." The public defender, clearly overwhelmed, mumbled a few words about Marcus being a first-time offender. The judge barely nodded. Denise leaned forward, clenched her phone tight in her hand, and stepped out of the room. She made a call. Not to a lawyer, not yet. She called Dr. Evelyn Randall. Randall wasn't just anyone. She was Denise's former college roommate, a tech executive, and more importantly, someone who never forgot where she came from. Denise didn't waste time. "Eve, they've got Marcus. They're railroading him. I need help." Randall listened for 30 seconds, then said, "Send me everything. The name of the store, the time of the arrest, Marcus's description. I'll call you back." Denise returned to the courtroom, sat down, and waited. 45 minutes later, her phone vibrated. It was a text. One link, no message. She opened it, and there it was. Surveillance footage from the electronics store, time-stamped just minutes before the theft. The kid in the video. He was wearing a grey hoodie, tall, black. But there was a detail the police report conveniently left out, a full tattoo sleeve on his right arm. Marcus didn't have tattoos. Denise stood up, quietly exited again, This time she called someone else, Attorney Dana Weathers, civil rights specialist, sharp as a blade, ruthless in court. Within 20 minutes, Dana was on her way to the courthouse with a printed copy of the footage and a signed affidavit from the store owner confirming Marcus wasn't the thief. Inside the courtroom, the judge had already scheduled Marcus's preliminary hearing. Bail denied, case moving forward. Then Dana walked in. The prosecutor blinked. "Who are you?" Dana smiled. "New counsel for Mr. Carter, and I have evidence that makes your entire case collapse like a house of cards." She handed over the footage, the affidavit, and a signed statement from Marcus's employer, confirming he had clocked in 5 minutes after the alleged robbery took place, half a mile away. The judge shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Smugness gone. Dana leaned in. "And just so the record's clear, Your Honor, any further detainment of my client after this evidence could constitute a violation of civil rights under federal law. Are we clear?" The judge cleared his throat. "We'll reconvene in chambers to review the material." He banged the gavel. "Adjourned." But the look on his face, it said everything. He thought he knew who Marcus was. He didn't. Want to see what happened next, and how this case shook the entire courthouse from the inside out? Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. This story is just getting started. Inside the judge's chambers, the atmosphere was different, tense, controlled. Judge Callahan sat at the head of a narrow wooden table, eyes flicking between the surveillance footage playing on a small monitor and the printouts spread before him. The prosecutor shifted in his seat, silent now. Dana Weathers, calm and composed, sat beside Denise, who hadn't spoken a word since entering. Her face was unreadable. The video played again. The suspect's face wasn't clear, but the tattoos were. A dense sleeve of ink from wrist to shoulder. The clerk's testimony, which had originally described a black male in a grey hoodie, now had a crucial addendum, with tattoos on his right arm. And Marcus? He sat quietly in a waiting room outside, unaware of what was unfolding just beyond the heavy oak doors. Judge Callahan sighed. "Why didn't this footage come through the police report?" the prosecutor stammered. "It may not have been available at the time of booking." Dana raised an eyebrow. "It's been 24 hours. You've built a case based on a vague description, no direct identification, and no effort to verify an alibi. You denied bail to a minor based on, what? Convenience?" The judge didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back and stared at the ceiling, silent for a beat too long. Then he said, "We'll reconvene in open court." 20 minutes later, the gavel struck again. Everyone in the room sat up straighter. The judge cleared his throat, glanced briefly at Marcus, then began reading from a sheet of notes. After reviewing new evidence submitted by the defense, including time-stamped surveillance footage and sworn testimony, this court finds insufficient grounds to proceed with current charges. The case is dismissed. Mr. Carter, you are free to go. Just like that. But the courtroom didn't erupt in applause. There were no cheers, just stunned silence. The kind that says everyone in that room knew this wasn't justice being served. This was justice being corrected. Marcus stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Dana placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let's go, kid. You've got your life back." Outside the courthouse, Denise held her son tight. His hands trembled. Her jaw was clenched so hard she could barely speak. But her eyes said everything. She didn't thank the judge, she didn't speak to the press, she didn't post online. Instead, she went home. She sat at her kitchen table, and she opened her laptop. Because this wasn't over. Within days, Dana Weathers filed a formal complaint against the arresting officers for unlawful detainment and use of excessive force against a minor. Body cam footage revealed that Marcus had never resisted arrest. He had simply asked why before being slammed to the ground. Even worse, the footage showed the officers high-fiving after the arrest. One of them even joked, "Got another one off the street." The video leaked. Local news stations ran the story. Protests followed. Not massive ones, but steady, persistent. At the same time, Denise submitted a formal request to have Marcus's record expunged immediately. She also contacted the school board to ensure that his suspension, automatic when a student is arrested, was revoked and wiped clean. But perhaps the most important move came quietly. She filed a civil suit against the city, not for money, but for accountability. During depositions, more damning details came out. The officers had stopped 3 other black teens that week, none of whom were ever charged. It became clear that they'd been using the same tactic: vague descriptions, aggressive stops, and no follow-up when the evidence didn't match. It wasn't a mistake, it was a pattern. Under pressure, one of the officers resigned. The other was placed on administrative leave. But that wasn't the end. Denise had one more move. She reached out to a journalist from a national outlet, someone with reach, with credibility, and with no fear of calling out the system. The story went viral, not just about Marcus, but about how quickly a young black life can be pulled into the gears of a machine that doesn't pause to ask questions. A month later, Marcus sat across from a counselor, trying to work through the panic attacks that still came at night. He couldn't walk down the same street anymore. He still flinched when he saw a patrol car, but he was back in school, back on the basketball court, and his teammates had his back. One of them, Isaiah, his closest friend, asked him one day after practice, "Yo, you ever gonna talk about it?" Marcus shook his head. Not yet, but one day. Because Marcus had changed. He wasn't just a kid trying to get through high school anymore. He had seen the cracks up close. He had felt what it was like to be discarded. And he had seen what it meant to have someone fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. As for Judge Callahan, he never apologized, never acknowledged the smirk, or the decision to deny bail, or the fact that he nearly derailed a teenager's life over a few lines in a police report. But word got around. Other defense attorneys started paying closer attention. Dana Weathers made sure of that. And Denise? She didn't stop. She began organizing Know Your Rights workshops at her community center, started teaching kids how to document encounters, how to stay calm but never silent. Because she knew one truth better than anyone: you can't control how the world sees your child, but you can make damn sure it hears you when you speak. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Stories like this one remind us, injustice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in a look, a decision, a system built on shortcuts. If this story moved you or made you think, hit that like button, share it, and most importantly, subscribe for more powerful narratives that shine a light where others won't.